Hi everyone and welcome back. I had to use my mobile phone. My laptop is giving me some technical difficulties, but I'm so glad to be here with you all. Welcome back to our 365 Days with Jesus. And the beauty of technology is we can be flexible, right? And in challenges, we can be flexible. That's why I wanted to share that with you. So if you see it like the angle's a bit different because of that. Now we're going to continue with our 365 Days with Jesus, also known as Reading the Bible in a Year Challenge. And we're going to continue with the book of 1 Samuel. We're now going to read chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7. So in chapter 4, it talks about how the Philistines take the ark in victory because they go into this battle with Israel. And Israel decides to take the ark with them, right, from our previous chapter, thinking they're going to be safe from them and win, which doesn't occur. A lot of them got slaughtered by Philistines. They died. So the ark it's not because of the ark that was there. It's because God's spirit was not anymore with the Israelites. And unfortunately, the two sons of the priest Eli, they passed away. They got killed there. And they were the ones who also helped bring out the ark. So, and we know that when the ark or something holy or sanctified by God is moved to somewhere that God hasn't said, there won't be blessings, there will be curses, right? So a lot of them passed away. So now one of the soldiers who survived the battle goes to Eli and tells him, hey, I am one of the surviving soldiers. I just want to tell you your sons have been killed. But Eli was heartbroken, of course, but he had asked, where is the ark? And he says in one of the verses that because Eli was anxious because the ark was removed. And the messenger says the ark is with the Philistines now. It's not in the nation of Israel, it's with the Philistine country. So that impacted Eli so much that he fell off like in his chair. He was old. He broke his neck. I guess it was from a certain height. And he passed away. Now, his daughter-in-law, Phineas, his wife, was pregnant. She was about to give birth. So when she heard the news that the Ark of the God was taken from Israel, her father-in-law died. Her husband is dead. And a lot of people were getting slaughtered that day. And she was pregnant. So on top of it, her labors advanced. And then the midwives were trying to cheer her up. Hey, be happy. You have given birth to a son. But she wasn't even focused on that. She was like, my son is not a blessing right now. She called him Ichabod because she says the glory has left Israel. How sad, right? To name your son, the glory has left U.S. or whatever country you're from. That's so sad. So where did the glory go? That's something, that Israel has to question because of their decisions on, on their decisions on how they were worshiping pagan gods and, committing a lot of sins, evil actions that they weren't supposed to. Now, in 1 Samuel chapter 5, it talks about the capture of the ark provokes God's anger. Now, the ark goes to Ashdod, one of the cities of the Philistines. And the Dagon god, they have a statue of him. The head keeps falling off. The head each day kept falling off. And they're like, what's going on? No one's messing with that statue. Then they noticed the thing that's next to the Dagon god statue was the Ark of God. So they're like, we're not going to deal with this anymore. We got to remove this. And then what happens was God sends them a plague, similar to the bubonic plague, right? Like infections from rats. You get all these diseases from rats. So they were getting sick and with these tumors and like boils in their skin. So they started playing a very dangerous game, how the Amplified Bible commentary says, of hot potato. So they started giving it to other Philistine cities to deal with it. And it kept happening that every time they kept moving to another Philistine city, they were all getting this bubonic plague disease. And a lot of mice and just infections. It was horrible. So finally, the last city, Eckron. So it went from Ashdod to Gath to Eckron. And these were also former cities of Israel, but they were conquered by the Philistines. Due to Israel's transgression of God's law and just disobeying God, they were like, no, we need to get this away. Let's just send it back. So they finally decided we need to send this ark back to God. Oh, by the way, Gath is also one of the home city. It was the home city of Goliath, I think some of you have heard of David and Goliath. Yeah, so Gath was Goliath's home home city. Now let's continue with the book of 1 Samuel chapter 6. Now finally the ark is returned to Israel. How, you may say? So the Philistines gathered together. They're like, okay, we can't send this ark empty. What can we do? So they decided to make these statues of gold mice and these statues of like the tumors or like the bubonic, like I guess these like boils on their skin kind of. So and then, you know, as a guilt offering, they said. And that's something that a lot of pagan worshipers often would do in these times when they would do a guilt offering. They'll use like represent the disease that they were going through to get forgiveness of their gods. Very interesting. So they did that. They put in the ark. So now they get these 2 milk cows. And 2 milk cows just means these 2 female cows that are still with their baby calves, like still giving them milk. So they said if the 2 milk cows or these 2 female cows, they're going to tie them up to the ark. And the cows are going to transport the ark back. But they said if it goes to the city, one of the cities from the tribe of Judah called Bet Shemesh, then we know it was God's doing because he's angry with us because we took his ark. And they even says that they knew what happened with the Egyptians and Pharaoh, what happened all the way back in Exodus. So they're aware of who God is and God of Israel. And they said if the 2 milk cows go back to their baby calves, right? Because if their moms are trying to go back to their babies, then they know it's just bad luck. But guess what? The 2 milk cows without any direction, no driver, no human driver, naturally or spiritually with God's Holy Spirit, they go back to Beth Shemesh. So that's very interesting. Now, finally, the Beth Shemesh were so happy. Like, you know, Israelites were happy. Like, yay, the ark is here. But guess what happens? 50,070 men died from Beth Shemesh. The Israelites, and you're probably asking, why did they die? Well, because they weren't, a lot of them were looking into the ark when they weren't supposed to touch it or look into it. Remember, it's only the Levites, the holy priests that God has called. God has a certain rule and order. You can't defy that. So a lot of them died. So they said they have to, you know, figure that out, like what's going to happen. So they sent messengers to the residents of Kiryat Jearim, saying, the Philistines have returned the ark to the Lord for us. Come down, take it up to you. Now, 1 Samuel chapter 7, the rescue from the Philistines. Now, the men of Kiryat Jearim came and they took it to this house of a guy named Adinadab. They consecrated his son Eliezer to take care of the ark. And they were blessed for 20 years before the reign of David. But they started to grieve because they're like, oh my gosh, we're getting oppressed by the Philistines. So Israel says, if you return to the Lord with all your heart, verse 3, remove the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you and direct your hearts to the Lord and serve him only. And he will rescue you from the hand of the Philistines. So the Israelites removed the Baals and the other goddesses Ashtaroth and served the Lord alone. So they were worshiping God. They truly repented, they truly forgave and went back to their good ways. So Samuel started praying, but then the Philistines, after Samuel prays, sometime later, the Philistines starts coming back and they start warring against Israel. And they start getting scared again. Israel, it's a natural reaction. So Samuel prays again and says, don't worry, because God has delivered the Philistines. You guys will have success over this battle. And they did. A lot of Philistines, thousands and thousands of Philistines were killed by the Israelites. So finally, God's people got some golden points of war. Now, at the end it says, Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life, verse 15. He used to go annually on a circuit to Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah because he judged Israel in all these places. However, he would always go back to Ramah because his home was there, and there he judged Israel, and there he built an altar to the Lord. So what amazed me with this story is how Samuel still keeps his peace and how he still obeys God despite all this chaos happening, and how he stays loyal, obedient to him, and how he's like almost the only one who's doing it. Like, you don't really hear or read of other people, and I'm sure there were other good people, but it shows how even if the whole world chooses to go against God, we have to stay firm and loyal because God will be firm and loyal with us. And even if the whole world and you might feel alone, you're not alone because God is with you. God is going to provide for all your needs. God is going to give you all the success you need. So that's something that stood out to me. Now, for my reflection questions would be, in any of the battles or wars you may have spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, just wars we have in life, right? Even real wars, right? Like warfare. How can we exercise our faith? How can we choose to see the good and the bad? How can, or what can you personally do to stay focused on God, to stay focused on just, my goal is to go to heaven. My goal is not to even just go to heaven. My goal is to spend time with Jesus and my God, my Father, Holy Spirit, because they love me forever and ever. How can we stay on that focus or on that path? And if you are the only one in your circle of life, in your social circles that believe in God, how can you mark that difference for others? All right. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you guys in the next video segment of the first book of Samuel, chapters 8, 9, and 10. Thank you.